everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Readsy. Today let's chat about creating a consistent writing habit. This is a super common question. People are wondering how they can consistently incorporate writing into their routine and stick with it. And to be honest, a lot of it comes down to willpower. But there are a few tips that you can implement to help you get started, get the ball rolling, and help really create that habit. A lot of this is going to be related to our video on creating a schedule, so I will leave that in the cards as well as in the description. If you are trying to create a consistent writing habit, a schedule is probably one of the most useful tools that you can introduce into your writing routine. So in this video, I'm going to cover some extra tips that you can try. Number one, set realistic goals. It's really common for writers to set goals that are just really overshooting it. And what happens is they're never able to meet their goal, and then as a result, they feel discouraged and they don't try. So for example, let's say that you really want to challenge yourself and you really want to write your book and you want to get it done quickly. So you set the goal to write 3,000 words a day. But maybe this is just incredibly overreaching what is natural for you. You don't have the time, you don't have the energy. There are certainly writers who can write 3,000 words a day, but it's definitely overshooting for a lot of people. Maybe for the first week, you're super productive, you're really motivated by this goal. But after about the first week, it starts to catch up on you. You realize how much work this is. You don't have the energy to sustain this word output. What happens then is that you're never able to meet your goal, and so you don't even try. Most days, you know you're not going to have the time or energy to write 3,000 words, and because your goal is 3,000, you just don't try at all. That's why I personally have moved away from daily word counts. My word count was 1,500 words. On a day where I knew I wasn't going to be able to write 1,500 words, I just wouldn't write because in some part of my mind, it felt like it didn't count. When in actuality, it would have been better to just write, even if it was only 200 words, and still have produced something that day. So make sure when you're setting goals that they're realistic and that they're realistic in the long term. That it's not just something you can sustain for a week, but that you can sustain for months at a time. Setting super high goals can be really discouraging for a lot of people. What I'm describing isn't necessarily a universal experience, but it certainly is fairly common. But along with that, don't set no goals. Goals are such a motivating and important factor to keep you on track. What's important is to find the goal setting system that works well for you. A lot of this I did talk about in our video on scheduling, but to kind of cover it a little briefly, there are different ways that you can set goals depending on what you think will work for you. So you can try word count goals. For example, I want to write 1,000 words a day, or I want to write 5,000 words a week. You can also play around with the time frame based on what works best for your schedule. Or you could try scene or chapter goals. For example, 1 chapter a week or 1 scene a day. Or finally, you could try time goals. So for example, you want to write every single day, but you don't set any limits on how much or how little. You want to write 40 minutes a day, or maybe you set a goal to have 5 writing sessions in a week. Play around with different styles of goal setting to see what works for you and try to find that sweet spot where your goals are manageable but still motivating. For some people, it means a bit of a higher goal that they feel like they really need to push themselves for. For others, it means actually setting a really low goal where they feel motivated to reach it because they know they can on any given day. Number 2, don't let yourself skip 2 writing sessions in a row. Skipping 1 writing session might not seem like a big deal, but once you start to skip 2, that's when it starts to become a habit. That's when the habit starts to become skipping your writing session rather than actually writing. If you skip 1 writing session, really make sure that you don't skip the next one. Next up is to try to physically go to work. Stephen King is an author who's famous for doing this. He treats his writing essentially like an office job. He gets up, he walks outside, he goes to his office, which I think is in the basement or downstairs, and he physically goes to work, and he only comes home once he's finished his writing for the day. Try to create a workspace that's separate from your relaxing space. This might just mean writing in a specific chair or at a specific table in your house, or you might do like Stephen King does and actually try to leave the house. A lot of writers like to get a lot of work done in cafes, and I will say that I find leaving the house to go write does really enhance my productivity. Similar to where you write, you can try implementing other kinds of consistency into your routine to start building that habit. So like we talked about writing in the same place, or things like writing at the same time, or drinking the same kind of tea out of the same mug. Any kind of consistent habit that you can build into your routine, so you almost develop this writing ritual that feels very natural and is very easy to just kind of slide into every single day. Now, the only downside here is this can become a problem if you then feel like you can't write without those things. But if you find you're kind of a ritual-based person in your life, there's really no problem with creating a specific ritual to writing. It can help you get into the flow instantly because your brain cues you into writing mode based on these other things that you associate with your writing practice. Now here's a little bit of a call out. If you use the excuse, I don't have time, start calling yourself out on it. We tend to have more time than we feel like we do. So next time you catch yourself doing nothing for a period of longer than 10 minutes, for example, scrolling through social media or just general procrastination, call yourself out on it and go, I could be writing right now. If you do this for a period of a week, I bet you'll notice that there are a lot of times in the week that you were essentially doing nothing. And then what you want to do is reallocate those times for writing. And honestly, while I want you to watch this video, the fact that you're on YouTube right now means that you might be currently doing this. This might be a time where you could be writing, so I will call you out on it. You could be writing right now. You also want to treat a writing session the way that you would treat a meeting or an appointment with someone else. If you had set a meeting with another person, you would only miss it if there were extenuating circumstances. And you should treat your writing the same way. See your writing as that other person that you have set a meeting with, and you're only going to cancel on them if it's absolutely necessary. It can also help to write with a writing group or find a writing buddy, someone else who's in the process with you, and you can kind of keep each other accountable. It can be hard to follow self-imposed deadlines, so if you set deadlines between each other, maybe you're even going to swap work on specific days, now there's suddenly an external factor to it rather than just a self-imposed deadline. Even if you don't swap work, you can even just set deadlines and check in with each other, call each other out if you're not meeting them, or do something like write together or do word sprints together. Now, we've all heard the phrase write every day. It's very common writing advice, and I personally don't agree with it. I don't think you need to write every single day. I know it's not realistic for a lot of people, and I don't think it's a bad practice if it works for you, but I also don't think it's necessary. However, if you're trying to build a consistent writing habit, you decided that you want to write every other day, or say you've decided that you want to try to write 4 days out of a week, that's still a consistent writing habit, and that can be really productive in the long term, even if it's not every day. However, I do think it helps to set your sights on trying to engage with your writing every single day. Doesn't necessarily mean drafting, but doing something. So even if you're not going to draft on a specific day, you might read over your draft. You might work on your outline. You might, even do some publishing prep or something like that. You might do some marketing work. There are a lot of things that you can do to actively engage with your writing, even if you're not writing on a specific day, and that can create a really solid habit for you. I get to the end of the day and I'm like, I haven't done literally anything. I actually find it really nice to just take a bit of time, listen to music that reminds me of my current project, and just do a bit of brainstorming. It's not work, it's just setting aside 15 minutes to think about my project, but I find it keeps me really actively engaged with it, so it's easier to actually draft the book the next day. It might not necessarily feel productive, but it keeps you in the mindset of your book, and that can help you stay productive in the long run. And finally, work in a way that's natural for you, not for anyone else. Creative patterns and workflow varies person to person. There are a lot of mantras out there like write every day or write like it's your full-time job that work for some people, but they might not work for you, and that's all right. If it doesn't work for you and you've tried it and you just know it doesn't work for you, forcing yourself to write that way isn't going to make you a better writer because you're just going to be fighting against the current. You want to work in a way that's natural for you, even if it's not what's generally deemed to be the most productive. For example, I find that I kind of work in waves, so I will write a lot for a period of a week to 2 weeks, and then I kind of just naturally need a bit of a break for about a week. And then I'll write a lot for a couple weeks, and then I will write just a little or maybe not at all for a week. If I'm not planning, if I'm not scheduling, that's how I'll write. A lot and then not at all. A lot and then not at all. That's just how I naturally write, and so I don't try to fight it. Whatever your natural creative rhythm is, build your writing habit and your writing schedule around that. So that is how to build a consistent writing habit. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time.